It's important that we organize against capitalism and the various ways that people are oppressed simultaneously. It's in our interests as political people, as socialists and as revolutionaries, to really understand the ways in which capitalism oppresses us to the best of our ability. Because the more we understand how capitalism is oppressing us in all these different ways, the better ways in which we're able to fight against it. So it's not a race versus class or bigotry versus class. That's a false dichotomy. What it is that capitalism oppresses us because of racism, because of sexism, and heterosexism, and cissexism, and ableism. It oppresses us in all these different ways, and it behooves us to figure out the ways in which people are oppressed. How do we use that to fight against this system? The working class is made up of oppressed people. The working class is female, the working class is immigrant, the working class is trans, the working class has different abilities. So we want to organize the working class because they're the strongest, most capable group of opposing capitalism. So really what it is that there's been intentionally historical things that have tried to separate groups of oppressed people and the socialist movement. And with us, with Left Voice, our intention is to revive that, revindicate that we are, as oppressed people, in a particular position, especially in this imperialist country, to fight against bigotry and to fight against capitalism simultaneously. And it's really the historic task of our time, and it's something that I believe that we're able to do.
How it is that we're all binded together by this bigotry, by this oppression. Just one example, in the state of Georgia, which has passed these really draconian, they claim, anti-immigration laws, but they're clearly racist laws. They're anti-Hispanic, they're very racialized laws, to the point where the migrant workers who harvest the peaches in Georgia are staying away from working there for fear of the police, fear of the oppression and bigotry. So, their number one, this very important commodity for the economy is literally rotting on the trees there. And probably one brief guess, what kind of workers do you think that the state of Georgia would be bringing in to harvest these now that they don't have access to hyper-exploitable migrant worker? They're using incarcerated laborers. They're forcing prisoners to do this job for, of course, the much even lower cost than their exploitation and oppression of migrant workers do. The Jim Crow, the Black Codes, come directly from working class struggles. They come from the populist radical reconstruction movements of the post-Civil War, that the freed black workers and the white workers had both joined together post-Civil War and started movements, realizing it's the landlords, it's the merchants, it's the employers who are benefiting from all that. If we get ourselves in power, if we take the power, then we can get the land, we can get the resources that we need. Detroit fights back. It's one of the costliest and deadliest rebellions of the 1960s. And what emerges out of that is a working class movement that realizes these moral appeals, the getting Lyndon Johnson to sing "We Shall Overcome" while he's giving a speech is not attacking any of these issues. That what they need is a revolutionary working class movement to hit them where it hurts. That's where we see the centrality of class. Is it's not just about these abstract theoretical ideas. It's that if we want to get the things that we need, if we want to stop the police, get the police out of our neighborhoods, stop the police from killing us, they're not gonna listen to us. They're not gonna take it seriously unless you hit them where it hurts. Detroit, 1967, that's gonna be the auto industry. If they can take over the auto workers, if they can build a solidaristic, anti-racist, anti-imperialist, anti-war movement, they can actually get these things moving by not producing the number one thing that's moving the US economy. They can stop Detroit from producing. While one section of the working class is duped to vote for Republicans and Democrats, we have to remember the winner of the 2016 election was none of the above. The majority of eligible voters in this country chose none of the candidates. That nothing in our electoral system they see offers them anything that's going to change their daily lives. Interview, I think it was on Democracy Now!, someone talking from Flint, Michigan, saying that we here in Flint don't give a crap about Jared Kushner or Russia. We could care less what's going on in Russia. We want water that we can drink. They're that dangerous. We talk about the crackdown in the 60s and 70s. Black Panther's wife, Fred Hampton, gets assassinated, literally assassinated by the state, is because he's working with the Appalachian white workers, with the Young Lords. He's building something that's actually threatening to them through the Rainbow Coalition in Chicago, that they know these are the dangerous moments, that any of these divisive kind of anti-oppression things will only go to their benefit in the long run.
Whenever I hear this, we just want to reform the Democratic Party, or they're trying to, support the left wing. And I'm like, I think people tried that already, like there are some lessons in history that we should just keep in mind. And the Bolsheviks were very, very clear about what Kostas was saying, right, about not endorsing the bourgeois government of Kerensky, the one that took power in February. And that's the main reason why the Bolsheviks were a minority in the Soviets in February. But then just a few months later, they were the white majority because they were opposing, they were exposing the government at every turn. They were denouncing how Kerensky's government was cracking down on workers on demonstrations, why Kerensky was not giving the 8 hours workday, why he was now withdrawing the military that was engaged in the imperialist war. The Left Front and the PTS has managed to grow as big as it is, more than 1 million votes and over 3% of the population. We have seats in Congress, and we use all those positions that we conquer for advancing struggles outside the parliament. And that's the main point. We have no hopes, no illusions on parliamentary democracy. It's a stage, it's a platform to advance our politics. And we use electoral campaign to advance also our slogans, our politics. But the main thing for us is to be recognized as a party of struggle, a party of the working class. And that's why at every workplace struggle, every strike, every roadblock, we are there and we're involved in not just talking about it or covering, but also since we are rooted in the working class, there's many members who are organized and engaged in those struggles, and that's the key for us to show what's the way. It's not going to be through election. It's not going to be through a parliamentary process. We share a platform that is explicitly working class and revolutionary. We call for socialism, and we are clear that there's going to take a revolution to get there. All these struggles all these strikes, roadblocks, confrontations with the police, we take them as a school of war for our party, because the conception we have as a party is that the membership, the cadre of the party have to be forged in those struggles, in those confrontations with the state, with the police, with the bosses. It's not going to be electoral politics again. So revolutions have happened throughout history and will happen again. The key is to be prepared for that, and the key is to have the political tool, the party that can take advantage of the moment and lead it to a successful revolution.
In 2015, 300,000 women and men came to protest under the slogan "Ni una menos." Came to protest the femicides under that slogan. And so since then, every year, there have been these Ni una menos protests where hundreds of thousands of people come out in support of women's rights. In Argentina, there were work stoppages on March 8th, in addition to the massive protest. At PepsiCo, a Pepsi factory, the work stoppage began at 5 a.m. And went on throughout the day. Also, airline workers, predominantly women, also called for a strike on that day and created chaos in the Argentine airport. And again, bolstered by assemblies organized by an opposition caucus to the union bureaucracy. So Pan y Rosas, like I said, is a socialist women's group. We exist in Argentina, but also in Bolivia, Brazil, Chile, Mexico, Spain, Germany, and other countries. And we're grounded in a firm belief that only in ending this system of capitalist misery can we bring an end to sexism that plagues the lives of women around the world. With that said, we also fight for immediate democratic changes and fight for women's rights in the here and now. We fight for the right to an abortion. We fight for the right to be paid a living wage and to be paid equal to men. We fight for the right to not be beaten, raped, and abused. But we also believe that the working class united with the women's movement and taking up the demands of women, LGBT people, Black people, indigenous people, that alliance is an unstoppable force in our society. And so that's how theoretically our basis, and that's how we organize. And they camped out in the factory, and then they were like, we can just keep producing. Yeah. So at Kraft Foods factory, there was a women's commission, and they helped organize a work stoppage after a female worker had been harassed by her manager. So she had been sexually harassed by her manager. She goes to, she sort of followed all of the channels that were necessary, the bureaucratic things within the factory, and what ends up happening is she gets suspended and the manager stays. And so immediately she goes to the Women's Commission, she goes to the oppositional caucus within the factory, and right away they say, okay, this is not going to happen, and they organize a work stoppage right away. They're like, okay, and we're done, no more producing. Within 5 hours, the manager had been removed and she had been reinstated. In the last presidential election, we had a presidential candidate. Our candidate was the only one in the televised national debate to talk about women's rights and to talk about the right to an abortion. Even though there were women candidates on the stage, and none of them said anything about abortion.
Very often people tend to blow off school segregation as, well, it's neighborhood segregation, right? It's the geography of the city. The city's schools are in fact more racially segregated than the neighborhoods themselves. So that kind of blows apart that idea that, well, this is just, it's because the schools are in neighborhoods and the neighborhoods are segregated. Black and Latino students are just as isolated, and the schools are just as segregated in high schools as the elementary schools are. So Jill Bloomberg is the principal of Park Slope Collegiate, or PSC, which is one of those. So they wanted to set up a separate entrance for the students from Millennium High School that would not have metal detectors, but they were very vehement about metal detectors remaining in the entrance for the other schools. And I mean, I've seen over the years, as the gentrification increased, students are, at the end of the day, the students in that building have been herded onto MTA buses by school security guards. They want them out of the neighborhood. There's a huge, discouraging allowing the students to walk around the neighborhood in which they attend their school. So Jill Bloomberg was very vocal against the Millennium opening, and it was used rightfully so as a platform to discuss school segregation and to discuss the inadequate funding levels that were going on. So now she, along with two other teachers who work at the school, are being accused of politically organizing students, using their own personal politics. And really what this is about is telling students that it's okay to advocate for themselves and to advocate for their school, and that's now being targeted as this inappropriate political pushing of adult ideas on children. The political ideas that they're being accused of having is communist ideas, right? This is terrible, the children are learning about communism, and the rhetoric is extremely McCarthyist. And the only way that unions can survive, I think it is going to be hard to just communicate to our members the need to survive. We're also going to have to communicate to the broader community the need for the unions in the first place to be able to get that support. I feel like that's the only way that unions can survive, is to maintain these solidarity-based connections with the wider community.